Good morning to all of you. Can I also begin by acknowledging this morning that we meet on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and we acknowledge their ongoing spiritual relationship with this precious land. Can I thank Uncle Moogie for his excellent welcome to country? Can I acknowledge His Excellency, the Honourable Hugh Van Lay, Governor of South Australia, to Cabinet Ministers, to the Leader of the Opposition, to all of my parliamentary colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, but most importantly, members of the Stolen Generations. I'd also like to thank this morning Shona Reid and her team from Reconciliation SA for bringing us all together again. I'm told there are more than 1,300 people attending this morning, and it is a complete and utter sellout. This is a great tribute to the work that Reconciliation SA does here in South Australia, as well as the continuing recognition of the importance of the national apology. Coming together like this is important as we reflect on the past, we acknowledge its legacy, but most importantly, we work together to build a shared future. Since we gathered at this venue, this very same venue, just over 12 months ago, it has been a challenging year for us all. A year ago, we were just beginning to come to terms with what COVID-19 may mean. We soon found out that it would radically change the way that we lived and the way that we worked, particularly for those in regional and remote Aboriginal communities. South Australia's Aboriginal community leaders have worked tirelessly to maintain the safety, health and the well-being of their communities. To date, we have not had a single case of COVID infection in a remote or regional Aboriginal community here in South Australia. I acknowledge this magnificent effort through the Premier's COVID-19 Aboriginal Community Leadership Awards event at Tandanya before Christmas. It's been a particularly challenging time given the lived experience of community restrictions in previous times, but please be assured the actions taken by the community leaders were courageous and they were warranted. They recognised the risks that COVID-19 presented. Our next task is equally as important: to deliver education and awareness to communities in the rollout of our COVID-19 vaccine. And I encourage each and every one of you to continue to keep your communities safe. Let's give a round of applause to those Aboriginal communities that kept the people safe during COVID-19. Another challenge that we faced last year during COVID was the response to events in the United States in the wake of the death of George Floyd. Here in South Australia, those who wanted to demonstrate their views were able to do so despite the restrictions on public gatherings. Our Police Commissioner, Grant Stevens, recognised that this was a unique and an extraordinary event which warranted an exception to the restrictions. This was another example of a long tradition in South Australia of tolerance for the right to protest about matters of public importance. Last year ended with an historic address to the South Australian Parliament by the Commissioner for Aboriginal Engagement, Dr. Roger Thomas. Dr. Thomas advised our Parliament where progress was being made and also where more needs to be done. I appreciated all of the interest of members of the Parliament in this very important address. It was part of the work that the Commissioner is doing to advise the Government on a new engagement model to ensure that Aboriginal people and communities have a genuine place at the table in discussions with government agencies and the South Australian Parliament. In our continuing efforts to improve opportunities for Aboriginal South Australians, the Government will soon release its second 2-year Aboriginal Action Plan. This will identify another series of projects to be undertaken by Aboriginal people and organisations and government agencies all working together. The Government is also a signatory to the new Closing the Gap National Agreement. The new agreement is historic in that it is between representatives of Aboriginal peak organisations and all levels of government. To support its implementation, South Australia has allocated more than $3 million to strengthen Aboriginal community organisations. This will enable those organisations and government agencies to work together more closely in the delivery of programs and services. As an example of this, I can announce this morning that the Department of Child Protection will initiate an engagement and co-design process to establish a new service to support those Aboriginal organisations that provide much needed services to Aboriginal children and their families. The new service will be implemented in 2022. It will serve as an important voice to government for both Aboriginal organisations who work with the child protection system, as well as Aboriginal families and their children. Another area where the government is seeking to support communities is in the rejuvenation and strengthening of Aboriginal language heritage. We've announced the establishment of the Aboriginal Living Languages South Australian Cooperative Project. This is a joint venture involving the South Australian Museum, the Mobile Languages team from the University of Adelaide, and Aboriginal communities across South Australia. Michael O'Loughlin, former AFL legend and great-grandson of Millaram, has come on board as an ambassador. The project aims to make rich archival materials accessible for use in a new web presence to promote South Australia's unique and important Aboriginal language heritage. It will significantly increase the online presence of Aboriginal languages for community-based learning and be a resource for our schools here in South Australia. I expect languages to be a very important feature of the Aboriginal Art and Culture Centre to be established on the site of the former Royal Adelaide Hospital. Under the guidance of Aboriginal Ambassador David Rathman AM, the Centre has just launched its unique Aboriginal architectural design, and we can now look forward to the commencement of its construction. In closing, let me say what an honour it is to talk to this massive audience this morning. It is so encouraging to see so many people of all ages involved here, to see recognition of the respect for the stolen generations, to be able to acknowledge our shared history while also celebrating the vitality, the creativity and achievements of South Australian Aboriginal communities, and, of course, our continuing commitment to reconciliation. Enjoy the morning.